Hello, and welcome back to Betty's Book Basket. Today we are going to be reading The Fourth Magic Treehouse, Pirates Past Noon. While we are reading, you get to watch my cats out on their catio. And just like Jack and Annie, we're all still learning, so if I make a mistake, that's okay. Mistakes help our brains grow. Are you ready? Let's open our book and let our imaginations take us to Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Chapter 3. 3 Men in a Boat. "We've come to the time of pirates," Jack said. "Pirates?" squeaked Annie. "Like in Peter Pan?" Jack flipped to the picture that showed the parrot, the sea, and the ship. He read the caption under the picture. 300 years ago, pirates raided Spanish treasure ships in the Caribbean Sea. He grabbed his notebook and pencil from his pack. He wrote, "Pirates in the Caribbean." He turned to the next page. There was a picture of a pirate flag. He read, the skull and crossbones flag was called the Jolly Roger. "Let's go," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack. "I want to make a drawing of the flag." He propped the pirate book on the sand. He started drawing the Jolly Roger flag. "Don't copy the picture in the book," said Annie. "Look at the real thing." But Jack pushed his glasses into place and kept drawing. "Jack, some pirates are getting into a rowboat," said Annie. Jack kept drawing. "Jack, the boat's leaving the big ship," said Annie. "What?" Jack looked up. "Look," said Annie, pointing. Jack looked. He saw the rowboat coming towards the shore. "Run," said Annie. She started running towards the treehouse. Jack jumped up. His glasses fell off. "Hurry," Annie called back to him. Jack went down on his knees. He felt for his glasses. Where were they? Jack saw something glinting in the sand. He reached for it. It was his glasses. He snatched them up. Then he threw his notebook and pencil into his pack. He put the pack on his back. He grabbed his shoes and socks, and he took off running. "Hurry, they're coming!" Annie was at the top of the rope ladder. Jack looked back at the sea. The pirates were closer to the shore. Suddenly, Jack saw the pirate book. In all of his confusion, he had forgotten it. It was still propped in the sand. "Oh man, I forgot the book," he said. He dropped his socks and boots below the treehouse. "Come on, Jack," Annie shouted. "I'll be right back," Jack called. "I've got to get the book." "Jack, forget it." But Jack was already running towards the water. Jack grabbed the book. "Come back," Annie shouted. Jack shoved the book into his backpack. Suddenly, a giant wave carried the rowboat right onto the beach. "Run, Jack!" shouted Annie. 3 big pirates splashed onto the sand. They had knives in their teeth. They charged towards Jack. "Run, Jack, run!" cried Annie. Chapter 4. Vile Booty. Jack started to run across the hot sand. He ran as fast as he could, but the pirates ran faster. Before Jack knew it, the biggest pirate had grabbed him. Jack struggled, but the pirate had huge, strong arms. He held on to Jack and laughed a mean, ugly laugh. He had a shaggy black beard. A patch covered one eye. Jack heard Annie yelling. He saw her coming down the rope ladder. "Stay where you are," Jack shouted. But Annie kept coming. "Leave him alone, you bully," she cried. The other 2 pirates laughed meanly. They were dirty and ragged. Annie charged up to the biggest pirate. "Let him go," she said. She hit the pirate with her fist and kicked him. But the pirate just growled. Then he grabbed her too. And with his giant hands, he held Jack and Annie as if they were 2 kittens. "No one escapes Captain Bones," he roared. His breath was terrible. "Let's go," Annie shouted into his face. But Captain Bones just smiled. All his teeth were black. Annie felt silent. Captain Bones laughed loudly. Then he turned to the other 2. "Find out what's in their house, you dogs," he said. "Aye, aye, Captain," they answered, and they started up the ladder to the treehouse. "What do you spy, Pinky?" shouted Captain Bones. "Books, Captain," Pinky shouted down. "Ugh, books?" growled Captain Bones. He spit on the sand. "I want gold, you dogs." "Dogs are nicer than you," said Annie. "Shh," said Jack. "What about you, Stinky?" Captain Bones roared. "Just books, Captain," shouted Stinky. "Ugh, books," said Captain Bones. He spit on the sand again. "I hate books. Keep looking, dogs. Find something good." Captain Bones grabbed Jack's backpack. "What's in here?" he said. "Nothing." Jack quickly opened the pack. Just a paper, a pencil, and a book. "Another book?" roared Captain Bones. "That's vile booty." A gleeful shriek pierced the air. Captain Bones froze. "What's that?" he shouted. "Look, Captain, look!" Pinky leaned out the treehouse window. He held the medallion. It glimmered in the sunlight. Oh, brother, thought Jack. Throw it down, cried Captain Bones. It's not yours, shouted Annie. Captain Bones dropped Jack and Annie. He caught the medallion as it fell. Gold, 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 he cried. Captain Bones threw back his head and laughed horribly. Stinky and Pinky howled like wolves. Chapter 5. The Kid's Treasure. Jack and Annie watched in horror. The gold-greedy pirates seemed to have lost their minds. Jack nudged Annie. Together they started to back slowly away from the pirates, towards the treehouse. Halt! Captain Bones shouted. He aimed his pistols at them. Not another step! Jack and Annie froze. Captain Bone grinned his black-toothed grin. Tell old Bones where the rest is, he growled, or prepare to meet thy doom. What? What rest? Said Annie. The rest of the treasure, roared Captain Bones. I know it's on this island. I have a map. He reached into a belt pouch and pulled out a torn piece of paper. He waved it at Jack and Annie. Is that a treasure map? Asked Jack. Aye, it's the map telling about kids' treasure. Which kid's treasure? Not us kids, said Annie. We don't know anything about a kid's treasure. Why don't you read the map? Asked Jack. You read it. Captain Bones shoved the map in Jack's face. Jack stared at the strange marks on the paper. What does it mean? Asked Jack. What does what mean? Asked Captain Bones. Those words. Jack pointed at the words at the bottom of the map. Well, it means... Captain Bones' good eye squinted at the writing. He frowned. He coughed. He rubbed his nose. Leave him alone, Pinky growled at Jack. You know he can't read, said Stinky. Be quiet, Captain Bones roared at his men. Jack and I can read, Annie piped up. Shh, said Jack. Captain, make him read the map, said Stinky. Captain Bones gave Jack and Annie a dark look. Read it, he growled. Then will you let us go, said Jack. The pirate squinted his good eye again. Aye, when the treasure's in me hands, I'll let you go. Okay, said Jack, I'll read it to you. He looked at the map. It says, the gold doth lie beneath the whale's eye. Heh, Captain Bones scowled. What's that supposed to mean? Jack shrugged. Hang it! Take 'em back to the ship, shouted Captain Bones. They can rot there till they're ready to tell us how to find kids' treasure. Jack and Annie were tossed into the rowboat. Waves splashed the sides. The sky ahead was dark with thunderclouds. A strong wind had started to blow. Row, dogs, row, said Captain Bones. Pinky and Stinky began rowing towards the big ship. Look, Annie said to Jack. She pointed to the shore. Polly the parrot was flying over the sand. She wants to help us, said Annie. Polly started to fly over the waves, but the winds were too strong. She turned around and flew back to the island. Chapter 6. The Whale's Eye. The rowboat tossed from side to side. The waves were huge. Salty spray stung Jack's eyes. He felt seasick. Hold her steady, shouted Captain Bones. He pointed at the sea. Or we'll be meat for those evil brutes. Dark fins cut through the water. Sharks! One zoomed right by the boat. Jack could have reached out and touched it. He shuddered. Soon the rowboat pulled aside the ship. The air was filled with wild fiddle music and bagpipes playing. And Jack heard jeers, shouts, and ugly laughter. Hoist him aboard, Captain Bones shouted to his men. Annie and Jack were hauled onto the deck. The ship creaked and moaned. It rolled from side to side. Ropes flapped and snapped in the wild wind. Everywhere they looked, Jack and Annie saw pirates. Some were dancing, some were drinking, many were fighting, with swords or with their fists. Lock 'em in my cabin, Captain Bones ordered. A couple of pirates grabbed Jack and Annie and threw them into the ship's cabin, then locked the door. The air inside the cabin was damp and sour-smelling. A shaft of gray light came through the small round window. Oh, man, said Jack. We've got to figure out how to get back to the island. So we can get to the treehouse and go home, said Annie. Right. Jack suddenly felt tired. How would they ever get out of this mess? We better examine the book, he said. He reached into his pack and pulled out the pirate book. He flipped through the pages. He looked for information to help them. Look, he said. He found a picture of pirates burying a treasure chest. This might help. Together they read the words under the picture. Captain Kidd was a famous pirate. It is said that he buried a treasure chest on a deserted island. The chest was filled with gold and jewels. Captain Kidd, said Jack. So that's the kid that Bones keeps talking about, said Annie. Right, said Jack. Annie looked out the round window. And Captain Kidd's treasure is buried somewhere on the island, she said. Jack took out his notebook and pencil. He wrote, Captain Kidd's treasure on island. Jack, Annie called. Shh, wait a minute, he said. I'm thinking. Guess what I see, said Annie. What? Said Jack. He looked back at the book. A whale. Neat, he said. Then he looked up. A whale? Did you say a whale? A whale. A huge whale, as big as a football field. Jack jumped up and looked out the window with her. Where? Jack asked. All he could see was the island, and stormy waves, and shark fins. There, said Annie. Where? Where? There. The island is shaped like a giant whale. Oh, man, whispered Jack. Now he could see it. See the whale's back? Said Annie. Yep. The slope of the island looked like the back of the whale. See his spout? Said Annie. Yep. The palm tree that held the treehouse looked like the spout of the whale. See his eye? Said Annie. Yep. A big black rock looked like the eye of the whale. The gold doth lie beneath the whale's eye, whispered Jack. Wow. Chapter 7. Gales a-blowin'. So the treasure must be under that rock, said Annie. Right, said Jack. Now we just have to get back to the island. We'll show Captain Bones where the treasure is. Then, while all the pirates are digging, we'll sneak up to the treehouse. And make a wish to go home, said Annie. Right. Jack poked his head out of the round window of the cabin. Captain Bones, sir, he shouted. The pirates took up the cry. Captain Bones! Captain Bones! Hey? Came a horrible voice. Captain Bones stuck his ugly face through the window. His good eye glared at Jack. What do you want? We're ready to tell the truth, sir, said Jack. Go ahead, growled Captain Bones. We know where Captain Kidd's treasure is. Where? We can't just tell you. We have to show you. Captain Bones gave Annie and Jack a long, hard look. You'll need a rope, said Jack. And shovels, said Annie. Captain Bones growled. Then he roared at his men. Get me some ropes and shovels. Aye, aye, Captain. Then throw these levers in the boat. We're going back to the island. Aye, aye, Captain. Back in the rowboat, Jack saw the sky had grown even darker with clouds. The waves were bigger. The wind was howling. Gale's a-blowin', said Pinky. You'll see a gale if I don't get me gold today, by thunder, Captain Bones shouted. Row, dogs, row! The three pirates battled the waves until the rowboat reached the island. They all piled into the shore. Captain Bones grabbed Jack and Annie. Okay, he said. Now show us where the treasure is. There, said Annie. She pointed at the black rock near the tip of the island. Under that rock, said Jack. Captain Bones dragged Jack and Annie down the beach to the black rock. Get to work, Captain Bones said to Pinky and Stinky. What about you? Asked Annie. Me? Work? Captain Bones chuckled. Jack gulped. How could they get away from him? Don't you think you should help your friends? He said. Captain Bones gave Jack a horrible grin. Nay, I'm going to hold you two till there's treasure in me hands. Chapter 8. Dig, dogs, dig! Pinky and Stinky tied their rope around a big rock. The wind howled. The two pirates pulled. And pulled. And pulled. They need help, said Jack. Ah, let the dogs do the work, growled Captain Bones. You're not very nice to them, said Annie. Who cares? Roared Captain Bones. Captain, we got it, shouted Pinky. They started pulling the rock across the sand. Now let's dig where the rock was, said Jack. All of us. But Captain Bones ignored his suggestion. Dig, you dogs, he shouted. Pinky and Stinky started to dig. The wind blew even harder. There was going to be a thunderstorm. Ow! I got sand in me eyes, Pinky whined. Ow! Me back hurts, Stinky cried. Dig! Shouted Captain Bones. He held Jack and Annie with one hand. With the other, he pulled out the gold medallion. He tossed it at the two pirates. It fell into the hole. Dig for more of these, you swine, he said. Squawk! Look, Annie said. Polly was back. She was circling above them. Go back, she squawked. Pinky and Stinky looked up at the parrots. They scowled. Dig, shouted Captain Bones. Dig, you dogs. A big storm is coming, Captain. Go back, said Polly. The bird's an omen, Captain, shouted Stinky. Dig, you dogs, cried Captain Bones. Go back, squawked Polly. The bird is warning us, shouted Pinky. We've got to get to the ship before it's too late. The two pirates threw down their shovels. They started running towards the rowboat. Mutineers, come back, shouted Captain Bones. He dragged Jack and Annie down the beach as he ran after his men. Stop! But the pirates kept running. They got to the rowboat and pushed it into the sea. Wait! Cried Captain Bones. Pinky and Stinky jumped into the boat. They started rowing. Wait! Captain Bones let go of Jack and Annie. He ran into the water. Wait, you dogs! He hauled himself into the rowboat. Then the three pirates disappeared into the spray of waves. Go back! Squawked Polly. She means us, said Annie. Just then, the storm broke over the island. The wind howls. Rain fell in buckets. Let's go, cried Annie. Wait, I have to get the medallion, shouted Jack. He ran to the hole dug up by the pirates. He looked down in it. Even in the dreary light, the medallion was shining. Big raindrops were falling into the hole, washing away the sand. Jack saw a patch of wood. Then the rain cleared away more sand, and Jack saw the top of an old trunk. He stared. Was it Captain Kidd's treasure chest? Hurry, Jack, cried Annie. She was halfway up the treehouse ladder. I found it! I found it! Cried Jack. I found the treasure chest. Forget the treasure chest, said Annie. We have to go now. The storm's getting worse. Jack kept staring at the chest. Was there gold inside? Silver? Precious gems? Come on! Now Annie was shouting from the treehouse window. But Jack couldn't tear himself away. He brushed the rest of the muddy sand off the chest. Jack, forget about the treasure chest, cried Annie. Let's go! Go back, squawked Polly. Jack looked at the parrot. She was perched on the black rock. He stared into her wise eyes. He thought he knew her. Knew her from somewhere else. Go back, Jack, she said. She sounded just like a person. Okay, it was definitely time to go. Jack took one last look at the treasure chest. He clutched the gold medallion, then he took off, running towards the treehouse. His socks and rain boots were still there. He quickly pulled his boots on. He shoved the socks into his backpack. The rope ladder was dancing wildly in the wind. Jack grabbed it. The ladder swayed as Jack climbed. He was tossed this way and that, but he held on tight. At last he pulled himself into the treehouse. Let's go, he cried. Annie was already holding the Pennsylvania book. She pointed to the picture of Frog Creek. I wish we could go there, she shouted. The wind was already blowing hard, but now it blew even harder. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster, then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 9. The Mysterious M. Drip. Drip. Jack opened his eyes. Rain was dripping from the leaves of the tree. They were back in Frog Creek. The rain was softer. The wind was gentler. The air was sweeter. Oh, man, Jack sighed. That was close. He was still holding the gold medallion. Polly's gone, Annie said sadly. I was hoping she might come back with us. No magic creature has ever come back with us, said Jack. He pulled off his backpack. It was damp with rain and salt water. Jack took out the pirate book. He put it in the stack of books, on top of the dinosaur book and the night book and the mummy book. Then Jack put the gold medallion beside the bookmark with the letter M. Next he went down onto his knees and ran his finger over the shimmering M on the floor. We didn't find any M's on this trip, he said. Or the M person, said Annie. Squawk! Polly! Cried Annie. The parrot swooshed into the treehouse. She perched on the stack of books. Polly looked straight at Jack. What are you doing here? He asked her. Slowly, Polly raised her bright green wings. They grew bigger and bigger until they spread out like a huge green cape. Then, in a great swirl of colors, in a blur of feathers and light, in a flapping and stretching and screeching, a new being took shape. Polly was not a parrot any longer. In her place was an old woman, a beautiful old woman with long white hair and piercing eyes. She wore a feathered cape. She was perched on the stack of books. She was very calm and very still. Neither Jack nor Annie could speak. They were too amazed. "Hello, Jack. Hello, Annie," the old woman said. "My name is Morgan Le Fay." Chapter 10. Treasure Again. Annie found her voice first. "The M-person," she whispered. "Yes, I'm the M-person," said Morgan. Where are you from?" asked Jack. "Have you ever heard of King Arthur?" said Morgan. Jack nodded. "Well, I am King Arthur's sister," said Morgan. "You're from Camelot," said Jack. "I've read about Camelot." "What did you read about me, Jack?" said Morgan. You're a witch." Morgan smiled. "You can't believe everything you read, Jack." "But are you a magician?" said Annie. "Most call me an enchantress, but I'm also a librarian," said Morgan. "A librarian?" asked Annie. "Yes, and I've come to the 20th century, your time, to collect books. You are lucky to be born in a time with so many books." "For the Camelot Library?" asked Jack. "Precisely," said Morgan. "I travel in this treehouse to collect words from many different places around the world, and from many different time periods." "Did you find books here?" asked Jack. "Oh, yes, many wonderful books. I want to borrow them for our scribes to copy." "Did you put all the bookmarks in them?" asked Jack. "Yes. You see, I like the pictures in the books. Sometimes I want to visit the scenes in the pictures. So all the bookmarks mark places I wish to go." "How do you get there?" asked Annie. "I placed a spell on the treehouse," said Morgan. "So when I point to a picture and make a wish, the treehouse takes me there." "I think you dropped this in dinosaur times," said Jack. He handed the gold medallion to Morgan. "Oh, thank you. I'd wondered where I'd lost it," she said. She put the medallion into a hidden pocket in her cape. "So, can anybody work the spell?" asked Annie. "Anybody who tries it?" "Oh, dear, no. Not just anybody," Morgan said. "You two are the only ones besides me to do it. No one else has ever even seen my treehouse before." "Is it invisible?" asked Annie. "Yes," said Morgan. "I had no idea it would ever be discovered, but then you two came along. Somehow you hooked right into my magic." "How?" asked Jack. "Well, for 2 reasons, I think," said Morgan. "First, Annie believes in magic, so she actually saw the treehouse, and her belief helped you see it too, Jack." "Oh, man," said Jack. "Then you picked up a book, Jack, and because you love books so much, you caused my magic spell to work." "Wow," said Annie. "You can't imagine my dismay when you started to take off for the dinosaur times. I had to make a very quick decision, and I decided to come along." "Oh, so you were the pteranodon," said Annie. Morgan smiled. "And the cat, and the knight, and Polly," said Annie. "Yes," said Morgan softly. "You were all those things to help us?" asked Jack. "Yes, but I must go home now. The people in Camelot need my help." "You're leaving?" whispered Jack. "I'm afraid I must," said Morgan. She picked up Jack's backpack and handed it to him. Jack and Annie picked up their raincoats. It had stopped raining. "You won't forget us, will you?" asked Annie as they put their raincoats on. "Never," said Morgan. She smiled at both of them. "You remind me too much of myself. You love the impossible, Annie, and you love knowledge, Jack. What better combination is there? Morgan Le Fay touched Annie's forehead gently, and then Jack's. She smiled. Goodbye, she said. Goodbye, said Jack and Annie. Annie left the treehouse first. Jack followed. They climbed down the rope ladder for the last time. They stood between the oak tree and looked up. Morgan was looking out the window. Her long white hair blew in the breeze. Suddenly, the wind began to blow. The leaves began to shake. A loud whistling sound filled the air. Jack covered his ears and squeezed his eyes shut. And then, everything was silent. Absolutely silent. Jack opened his eyes. The treehouse was gone. All gone. Absolutely gone. Jack and Annie stood a moment, staring up at the empty oak tree, listening to the silence. Annie sighed. Let's go, she said softly. Jack nodded. He felt too sad to speak. As they started walking, he put his hands into his pocket. He felt something. Jack pulled out the gold medallion. Look, he said. How did... Annie smiled. Morgan must have put it back there, she said. But how? Magic, said Annie. I think it means she'll be coming back. Jack smiled. He clutched the medallion as he and Annie took off through the wet, sunny woods. As they walked, the sun shined through the woods, and all the wet leaves sparkled. Everything, in fact, was shining. Leaves, branches, puddles, bushes, grass, vines, wildflowers, all glittered like jewels, or gleamed like gold. Annie had been right, thought Jack. Forget the treasure chest. They had treasure at home. A ton of it. Everywhere. The end.